Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, it is called Galaxy Today, and of course, we are looking at the Paris Club Refund. And we are here in the studio, of course, two of our guests. One is a very, very familiar face. We have Mr. Joshua Akimbanjo, an economist. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And then also Prince Obed Chinonyerim. Yes. For public affairs, he's a public affairs analyst and president of CAFUS, Obed FDTN.
All right, we have Prince Obed Chinonyerim.
Yeah.
I thought you were Igbo.
Of course, it's Chinonyerim. Chinonyerim. Yeah, so I pronounced it wrong.
Don't mind me. Of course, he's the president of CAFUS Obed Foundation. Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, gentlemen, we're looking at the Paris Club refund and, of course, other funds, bailout funds by the federal government to the state government. But the one very question I would love to ask is, I'll take it from where Senator Anyang, stopped, where he raised the issue of payment of workers' salaries. Some states in the federation are owing as much as 7 months' salaries to their residents. So how can they justify the fact that they've gotten the first and the second tranche and the salaries and pensions have not been paid over time?
You want Prince Obed to move?
Obed, he can start, yeah.
All right, it's looking at it, holistically, I think it's totally wrong. Again, me because I am sure that before the money was disbursed, definitely there has been a penned down rules, what they're going to use it for. Now, the primary aspect of it is that you should use this money to offset the bills, or the money that they're owing, of course, when it has to do with the salaries of the workers, and the pensioners. And I see no reason why somebody should, get up somewhere and begin to, plan against whatever has been decided for the money to be used for. Looking at it, the way the country is, and we know for sure. Of course, the president has cried out and said, please, can you please utilize this money on this whole process? Why? Because people, you have to talk about people's betterment before you can begin to talk about some other aspects of things that you need to do. Now, being a governor, you're supposed to have understood that, yes, my people's life are more important to me, to get them free, secure their lives, properties, and other things. And we try to now begin to talk about other things I have to put in place. And as much as you don't want to do that, I don't think it's the right thing to do. Please.
Okay, you want to say
Oh,
something?
Joshua, you want to contribute? Yes.
Yes, I think, taking from where Prince Obed just stopped, I think the first thing to look at is there was an objective for the release of that money. It was clearly defined before it was dispatched to them. And there was also a clause to it, which I think is where maybe the federal government or the presidency may be at fault. The clause is this: the condition is this money is given to you to offset all pensions and salaries and gratuities of workers. That's number one, which is a condition. The second part of which is a clause is this: before you will get the next tranche, you will reconcile how the first one was used.
Yeah.
That is where I think there is a gap.
Okay.
So was the usage of the first tranche reconciled before the second one was even given? Because you listen to the chairman of the Governors Forum, these guys are very intelligent men. They are very intelligent. They know what they are doing. Now, he came up now to say, he stated that clearly. So the question for me will be, why should the third tranche be released if you've not reconciled
The first and second
and the
was.
second? And is there the oversight role from the assembly to verify that there's an alignment in terms of now you can release this fund?
But who is supposed to ensure that these reconciliations are made? Is it the state houses of assembly or what?
Now, that is where the other very key role now comes into play. Because what is the role of those guys in the state house of assembly? We talk about separation of powers, and we also talk about checks and balances. That is a gap that I've found so far in governance. It's convenient for them to raise it where it affects them. And where it doesn't affect them, everybody goes quiet. Because we need to justify why this money is there. Transparency in governance is very important. Accountability is very important. We keep saying it every other day. I mean, you can say that the federal government started off by, when they were releasing the money, they published it. For every state, they showed how much was given to each of the states. So at this point in time, We know how much was released. Now, do we know how it was spent? We have some other independent agencies like Sarah, Budget, and Co. who actually they are third-party agencies, basically looking at how governance is being done and reporting what is happening. This is where we need them to come out also and really speak. Beyond the fact that we need, investigative journalism that also, zeroes down into this, because it is what they now are able to release to us here that we can now further project. All we have right now is, okay, they have released this, and now they want to send the next money out. If we did not know that the federal government actually stipulated that condition previously, we would not even understand that they were supposed to have reconciled. So can they reconcile that money instead of screaming and asking for the third tranche right now? State are suffering because civil servants have not been paid. These are people who have children, for God's sake. They have to pay school fees, they have to feed their children. And when we keep screaming, governance, the focus always on the presidency. Most times we even ignore, like we said previously, ignore even the National Assembly. Nobody cares to ask questions about how their constituencies are faring. They also get money. Who is asking for accountability?
And monitoring the stuff, of course.
And they keep getting money every other season. And this money is siphoned somewhere else. We are not seeing the impact in the various senatorial districts. And I think that is where we need to start from.
Yes, sorry, but looking at a report here online, it states that the governors of the 36 states of the Federation have demanded the release of the balance of the Paris Club refund by November this year to enable them include it in their 2018 budget. So now the claim here is the request for the tranche is for them to be able to plan out the 2018 budget, not
even
like
to fund salaries.
Yes. So now, how do we put this together? Now, we're not sure if it's been used, and now they are requesting for the 2018, in order to plan out their 2018 budget. Would you think, or would you say that that is, for now, we have to look forward by planning ahead and then not looking backward at what they've done with whatever it is they've done with the other cash? Or you'd rather say, let there be a hold and then let's be sure that what has been given has been well used? What's your take at this?
I think they are justified to ask for the money.
Okay.
And they are justified to say what they want to do with it. But the question is, there was a condition for the second tranche. Have they fulfilled that condition? Because if it was just a fund that should just be released freely, I mean, yes, it's okay. And let's also remember that this fund we are talking about was as a result of the negotiation by the former Minister of Finance way back when the negotiation came to say, look, it's high time we've overpaid all the debts to London and Paris Club, so write off the remaining part of the loan. And that was how we now have this surplus. Not one of them worked for it at all. We need to remember that. Okonjo-Iweala did that under Obasanjo's regime, and all of this is what they are now reaping. What are they even doing within their various states when it comes to internal generated revenue? What, if this wasn't there, would they not have better plans for the states?
Exactly.
These are the questions. You see, because we have issues today which all are about lack of transparency, issues of accountability, and because we followers, we are more responsible for all of this because we've not studied the Constitution enough to know how to demand all of this level of governance and accountability. That is the challenge we have. So yes, they have a right to ask for the money because we've already agreed that they should have it. But there's a condition for the third one. Have they fulfilled that condition?
Okay, before they ask for more. Okay, now, Prince Obed, let's still look at the place of the workers in all of this, because right now they are the ones in the focal point of this discussion. You know, we said in our intro that they've been owed as much as 7 months' salaries. Does this really say that the average state governor is not really bothered about what the plight of the people they are governing is really? Because we've had cases where some states have gone on very white elephant project and construction of statues and all of that. You know, I mean, do they even bother about what their residents are going through?
You know, to my own understanding, exactly, the truth is this: they don't think about the people that are guiding or they're ruling.
And what's the purpose of service?
Yeah, because looking at it, of course, he said it and he said the key thing. One of our problems in this country, first of all, is we forgot to understand what it takes to meet up with the basic stakeholders, which is, if I may say, to my own understanding, as an activist, the poor people in the street there, and the workers to say. Because if they fail to tell you, okay, go out there and ask them today, is there anything like this per refund? They will tell you, no, they don't know about it. Are you getting me? Just go to even some of the elites, they don't even know about it. And you're telling me here that a governor will stand up and tell me, oh, I've been doing great in my state. When it's sure that, looking at it, the members of the state, the citizens, they cannot even, afford to eat 1 square meal in a day. There was a time I looked at, you see, the Imo State, when they went for their payments, they were on the queue like that. Thousands of them on the queue. And at the end of the day, some were even slumping, because of what? Hunger. No thought of such, in them. And yet you tell me that you're governing your people, you're a good governor, you're doing this, you're doing that. I don't believe they have this understanding, what it takes to guide the people well. Because of course, okay, imagine, now there has been a stipulated condition, use this money to take care of these people's salary and their pensioners. Now at the end of the day, you are demanding that this is what belongs to you. And instead of giving the first account of what you've done with the first one and the second one. Are you getting me, sir? So looking at it, definitely it's obvious that our governors, I am saying it time without number, they are too careless to the citizens they are guiding or they are ruling.
Okay.
They disregard them in terms of helping them to at least get to their better lives. They don't even think about that. All they think about most times, sorry to put it like this, because I see it that they always think about their personal interest first.
Yes.
Are you getting me? What stops you from giving proper account of what you've done? If what you did is clear. Are you getting me? Oh, I spent Mr. A, I spent some money to Mr. A, I spent some money to Mr. B. Are you getting me? Now they fail to do that, and yet they're demanding for them to give you more. Of course, they know the truth.
All right, okay, fine. Let's bring Abuja into this conversation. We're being joined by the convener, Say No campaign, Ezenwa Nwagu. Thanks for joining us on Galaxy. Today we're looking at the Paris Club refund and, of course, other refunds by the federal government to state governor. Right now, the pertinent question of internally generated revenue, IGR, has been raised. If these funds were not there, what are the state governors doing as regards funding their own state? From what we hear from reports, just a few states in the country are the ones that can actually fund themselves without any dependence from the federal government. So what would you say? How do we address the issue of IGR by state governments in Nigeria?
I think the big conversation around why states are created is that the argument is that they are viable, that on their own they could be viable. So if the argument is that they are viable and they continue to do what Ike Ekweremadu calls the feeding battle federalism, then there's a challenge. The thing is to look inwards. But the bigger issue around resources of states has to do with corruption, really. The internally generated revenue plus what comes from the federal government, if it is invested for public good, then the generality of the citizens will benefit and will be happy. But what has happened is that you don't produce anything, and then the little you get is filtered away through all kinds of loopholes. So the challenge really is that there is just no oversight on the states. Many of the governors, at the risk of being immodest, are not looking inwards. They are lazy, and if you permit me, I could even use the word indolent. But the citizens themselves need to brace up to the fact that if they are able to oversight leadership in their states, then even the little resources that comes to them will not be handled the way we have seen it handled in many of the states.
Right now, the Senate is set to probe the legality of these refunds. Do you really think anything good would come out of this, or would it be something that will just be, swept under the carpet, like one of those things we see?
I didn't quite get that. I'm sorry. I didn't quite get that. Could you be a little louder?
Let me rephrase the question. Right now, the Senate is set to probe the legality of this refunds, the Paris Club refunds, the London Club, and all the other ones. Do you think anything would come out of this one, or is it just one of the normal things we get to hear in the media?
No, the Senate holds to its side. It's on a permanent ride of holding to its side. What do I mean by that? Which of the probes have actually brought out anything that is conducted by the parliament? Not one. From the Farouk probe to the one that Abdul Mumin forced on us, the budget padding issue, they were all swept under the carpet. So what we're going to do is to excite the imagination of citizens, make them believe something is happening, and then we put it in the cooler. But like I said, it's our own aloofness as citizens, our insensitivity that makes people in leadership behave the way they do. If citizens will continue to put the pressure and say the resources that you get, whether it is a refund or even proper allocation, is meant for the benefit of the citizens that you govern. How many of our people bother about what's in the budget or what's not in the budget? We just go about, and then when they throw something at us, we ride on that. We talk about restructuring. We talk about all kinds of things. We're not interested in the day-to-day issues that bother on our own existence, which has to do with the resources that we're already seeing that are mismanaged, that are misappropriated, that are going into private pockets. That's the challenge. So is a citizen